Good morning and welcome to Morning Moments. We have another special guest today, and all the way from Harrisburg, Virginia, not too far from me in Virginia Beach, Virginia. We have an actor, comedian, and producer, Dawn Davis Womack. Welcome, Dawn, to Morning Moments.
Well, thank you, Andy. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do and why do you do it, and how it all came about?
Well, to shorten the story, I wanted to be a Hollywood actress when I was a little girl. I even started out as an acting major at West Virginia University, and then ended up with an undergraduate and graduate degree in exercise science, because that makes sense. And after that, I did 20 years in the health and fitness field and found myself in another career change, mentoring students at James Madison University, doing leadership workshops and leadership training, when I met a JMU student I was mentoring. And after 3 weeks of getting to know her, said to me one day, "You seem to be all about people chasing their dreams. The only problem is you stop chasing yours," which was a big moment in my life to self-reflect. Was I living out what I believed, or was I hiding from what I believed? And what was the impetus behind that? And a lot of that was fear.
You know, I was telling you earlier when we were talking, don't you hate it when people use your own words against you and they quote you and you realize it's back on you?
Yes, yes. And then you have a choice, right? And I thought about that because I was in my 40s at the time that this happened. And one thought is, you would be insane to pursue something like that later in life. And from Harrisonburg, Virginia, this, why would you even do something like that? And then another part of me was, well, saying, if you don't, you'll never know. And you should just try. If you try and you fail, you can live with that. You can live with, well, I gave it all I could. And the opposite of that is to not try at all and never know. Yeah.
So you end up being a stand-up comedian through all that, right?
Yes, yes. Yes, I started out in community theater, did improv, did some own filming, writing comedy sketches, putting that out there on YouTube. And that turned into speaking roles. I actually just auditioned for a TV series yesterday. And yeah, and then that led to 2015, New Year's Eve, making goals for 2016. And I asked myself, what is the one thing that will scare you the most, or scares you the most, that will make you a better comedic actor? Because that's ultimately was my goal. And that was stand up. 10 months later, I'm taking my first stand-up class in DC, and I walk in, and after the get to know yous, the teacher says, "Okay, we're just going to have each of you come up and riff about your day for 10 minutes. And I wanted to run out of the building in that moment. But I also heard God tell me, no, just stay. Just stay today. Take one step toward facing your fear. You'll be okay. And I think God, one of the most amazing things that God does for us all the time that we don't recognize is that He always has our back.
You know, I wonder how many times the unfulfilled dreams that never people fear keeps them away from the unfulfilled dreams, and also the purpose in life that God has them for as well.
I think so too. It's paralyzing. It is. fear is paralyzing. I often say this, I said this to my son growing up several times. It's so true. I don't remember where I heard it, so I stole it. But um, it's a very good statement to keep in mind. You can't steer a non-moving truck. You can't. So you have to take that next step. And if you don't, you're just never going to find out what is in store for you. And I have found that each time that step doesn't always look pretty.
Yeah.
You can fall down a lot, but if you keep just moving forward and trusting him that in the end he is going to take you where you want to go, and it might not look at all like what you originally envisioned. I'm not living in LA and I'm not living in New York City, and that has been frustrating at times. I was more interested in my 20-year marriage than I was moving to New York or LA. So then it was, well, what can I do? You can't steer a non-moving truck. So what can you do here? And a year after I started stand up, I started X2 Comedy, and that is a comedy production company that puts on live comedy shows. 2 to 5 stand-up comedians, clean comedy, PG-13. And this March we will be celebrating 3 years.
The learning is in the journey and the strength is in the struggle. And
Yes.
when we have that, we had to struggle during the journey. That's where we really learn the most what God has for us, don't we?
We do, and we learn more about ourselves and our strengths and our weaknesses and our gifts and other people's gifts. There's a harmony in community.
When I listen to people from all walks of life, actors and nurses and comedians and authors, no matter what God has got for them and gifts they have for them, I hear the same things. It's surrendering to what God has for you to do and just letting him have
Yes.
control, right?
Let him have control. And he's the man. God's the man with the master plan. He's
Yes.
gonna have he's gonna have the best plans for us. And if we will just take a deep breath and trust in that struggle and process and believe that it will take us to greater heights than we can ever imagine, not to serve ourselves, but to serve other people.
You know, as we come to a close with this interview, down below in our comment section, you'll see a chance to connect with Dawn in her her Facebook page, her website, also her production company. I want you to reach out to her if you have any questions, if you want to connect with her, what God's doing for her. But more important than any of that, when you see your name and when you see this, I want you to be praying that God would use her in her endeavors and what God has called for her to do today.
Hmm.
Any closing thoughts that you have for us, Dawn?
I do actually. This was laying on my heart right before we started, and you had mentioned, hey, just whatever God is speaking to you, share that. And that is another saying that really moves me through struggles when it gets hard in facing those fears is that flexibility is your friend and expectation is your enemy.
Oh, wonderful. What a wonderful statement. Thank you
Yes.
so much. Thank you so
Yes.
much. So if you've enjoyed this, pass this interview on to others either through Facebook or through YouTube, and keep coming back for more. I want to thank my special guest, Dawn Davis Womack, and all that she does. And I'm sure we'll be connected in the future again with other endeavors. And thank you all for joining me for Morning Moments.
Thank you, Andy. You're amazing.
You're,
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for watching.
you're welcome. Thank you.
All right.